11 o'clock. First item on the agenda is the consent agenda is our April 23rd regular minutes. I'll make a motion we accept them as presented. Is there a second? Thank you. No. Yeah. Suzanne, what are you doing? It's your job, man. You're the second person. Um, Any other comments? I will mention that our minutes last month were 25 pages long. I do believe on any board I've ever been on, including this one, I think this is the longest minutes we've ever had. So thank you, Dwayne, for 25 pages of history. Yeah, yeah. Should have a pass-around trophy for the longest minutes in the city. Okay, next we move on to the finance. Oh wait, let's vote. All those in favor signify by sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. The motion passes. All right, moving on to our financial information. We do have some interesting updates this month. For the longest time, we have not had all the pending stuff in place. I have gone through and have tried to pick up most of the major stuff because I feel a tsunami of projects are coming our way, and so I want to make sure we're up there. So there's the first page of the financials. You'll see at the summary page, and you've got the income, the expenses, the pending projects. You'll notice down in the pending projects section, the summary is that we have right now projects that are been passed in the loop but not finished. We have $838,252.72 of projects that are right now in the hopper. So there. You'll notice that when you go past that into the report, there's the series is normally income and expenses. Then you have this approved pending expenses. Those are all now detailed too, so you can see each of those for each of the projects is what those are. We have had, I believe, as of the last meeting, our key building program, we had no requests for I think the last 3 years. And all of a sudden, we had 3 requests last meeting, and there are more coming. So I think it's a good sign to the community. I think it kind of indicates that people are wanting to do things in town, and there are buildings that have been vacant for a long time, and so those are now becoming attractive ways to get the job done. So I think it's a positive sign. So anyway, so that's in each of those areas. Nothing else much new, I don't think. Well, we also had updated. There is a page in there for the there's something John Michael's not even here for me to tell him this. On the revolving fund program, the way the city handles it, they basically start with the original amount of money and move forward. So all the rest of our funds, we basically bring them at the beginning of each year. We bring it back to the starting point with a new beginning balance. In this case here, I've gone back and readjusted because John Michael had noticed, wait a minute, something's not hooked up. We don't always get information from the city each month because this is a revolving loan program that we give money to the city and et cetera, and all kind of magic happens. So this now will have all the details that happen from the beginning of time till now, and I've got it balanced with Robin in the clerk treasurer's office. So we're now back to something that's a value. So we have $107,000 left. We have some projects coming down that I think we're going to need to raise this up. So we have to pull money from the other funds to put into this, and in our especially in our key buildings program, the max amount that someone can ask is $150,000, and we do have some folks that are in that area. So we're going to need to, in the next month or so, evaluate that stuff and decide which funds to pull stuff out of. But anyway, this is one that I rolled over, and then John Michael said, "Is that right?" And I said, "Well, I don't get any reports from the city." He said, "I don't know." So I got with Robin, and so this is here. He's not here, and he's missing us. So John Michael, if you're watching this from heaven, this has been taken care of finally.
Mike, I have a question
Yep.
about that. Can the revolving fund be augmented mid-year, or is this?
Yeah, we can add money to it. We can, it can change. It's a two-step process. Basically, we give money to the city council, and the city council then puts it in. This is a fund. Dwayne might explain this better, but
This is a fund the city council helped approve and start, and then gave RDC basically control over it. So to add money to it, the council will have to appropriate funds, I believe, Dave, if I'm not mistaken. You guys will have to appropriate funds, put into it, and then RDC would then approve funds to put back into the fund that you appropriated from. That's the way it was done the first time, I know.
What's the source of the replenishment? What's the source of the replenishment? The added funds? What are the-
Added funds would technically be from the city, because they are city funds that you're working with. But the city will probably require RDC to replace those funds with funds from RDC. So if the city were to give us, say, like originally they gave us $205,000, we then reimburse the city for the $205,000 out of the CETA fund.
I think the simple way to look, State Board of Accounts does not allow RDC to fund things on personal property. So to get around that, RDC created this revolving loan fund. So it's their money they have in your budget, but you can't fund personal property projects unless it's revolving or discretionary fund. So RDC, or City Council can pay it from CEDAT. They pay these projects from CEDAT. RDC replenishes the city, which passes all the SPOA sniff tests.
Thank you.
and this is primarily, we have the sidewalk fund, the exterior improvements fund, and also the key building fund. And we started out with the sidewalks, even the debate about, it may be city land that the sidewalk's on, and there's kind of a joint share agreement, but then you touch their building, and that's private. And then it gets worse than that from the facades, where we encourage them to fix their buildings up. Now you actually are affecting a private property building, and same thing with the key building, where it's a building that's there doing nothing. Nothing has been done to it. We want to encourage someone to take charge and put that back on the property tax rolls. So it was a necessity. Years ago, we were able to just do it from funds, but this is one of the things that the SBOA came in and said, we don't like the way this works, you need to do that. And so then this was the thing. So we have documents now that are tied to this that trace the whole city council.
So Malcolm, you can look, last year, $205,000 was transferred from RDC to the city council. RDC still has $179,080 in that account that you've already funded to the city. So as we churn through these, like the one we had from SCI last month for like 70-some thousand.
And scroll down, Dwayne, and because
Come off that. What could happen and what I need to get ahead of, and it's a 3-month process. If I have a project that hits that's higher than that 107 availability, then you cannot approve it until I get that clerical thing transferred from the city we just talked about.
Right.
So I've already started the process of, my next step is to go to city council, get them to appropriate funds from CEDAT, and then probably a month or two from now, I'm going to ask you to transfer more money into that pot.
Punishment come from any particular singular place, or could it come from any of the TIF?
We like it to come from the areas that we're going to pull it from.
Okay.
City council has to prove that they have funded monies in the past from those areas.
So the TIF funds are still coming from the TIF areas back into the TIF areas. They're just doing a loop-de-loop along the way to
Correct.
avoid any kind of problems with State Board of Accounts.
So for example, the Elks is going to be a $150,000 request at some point for their structural improvements to the apartment complex. In that example, I would have you transfer 150 from your downtown TIF
Gotcha.
to city council.
if we got a crystal ball that answers all that. Sometimes you'll see us do things where we look at one of the sheets you have, it shows the percentages of the money that's in each fund, of our total funds. So sometimes we'll do proportionally with, 30% of our money's in this fund, 10% in this fund, and you take the percentages and then put something like that in here too, so.
Which did you request from city council? The process that you've already.
We haven't.
Oh, you haven't?
No, that'd probably be,
205 was our original request that we had a couple of years ago.
Mike, if an item came up where in excess of the balance in that fund, would we have to table that or conditionally vote on it?
Well,
technically, you could, if you want to, you could pay from discretionary and then pay back discretionary from this revolving. Those are the only two. You can't have tax-generated RDC funds go towards personal property. The fact that our discretionary came from interest income, they've allowed us to do those things. So if you get a project that's 200,000, we're 93,000 short, you could technically transfer 100,000 from discretionary and then replenish discretionary next month. So it wouldn't put a halt on a project.
discretionary is not, we get about 160,000. I guess we're up to 255 right now, so there is some room there. But as Bill says, there's about a 3-month process of this has to happen, then this happens, and then it goes back and forth between various groups and committees and council and that kind of stuff. So, and to say this is the first time we've had. This is a good sign. We sat with $205,000 for almost 3 years and didn't really use it. So, and say in the previous thing, we would pull out of the fund, the TIF fund. And then the state board said, hey, yeah, you got private property here, we don't like that. But then there used to be in the old days, what I call the gray area, where they'd say, well, this is good for the entire community, something like a park or something like that. Well, then it was okay to pull that out of TIF funds because it was something that would be used by every citizen in the community or whatever. So that sort of thing. Okay. I think there's anything else in there. There's another page in there that has the spring and fall disbursements, which we have not, obviously, taxes that have been collected. Typically, the date there, we received our money last year on June 12th for the A side of the property taxes. And at the very bottom of this sheet, keep going, Dwayne. Getting clear. No, keep going. That's the interest received. That sheet tells you what we have. Okay, stop right there, Dwayne. There's it. So that sheet before is showing the interest that's coming in. That's the money we can actually transfer over into the discretionary fund. And then also you've got, we have the farmland that we're renting out. That is also money we can actually move. So Chase Davis, we're having that farmed, and it's about $11,000 that we transfer then over into discretionary from the farm. There's been some recent discussion that sometimes when we get these properties, we typically will give them, as part of the incentive package, we will give them the land. If we would get some money from some of those purchases, that could become discretionary also. We're watching the last month, we went down like a quarter point on interest, and we've got $8,000 left less in that 1 month from that change in interest rate. So it will continue to get less income from that side from there. On this one here that we've got, this has got the projections of what the Baker Tilly believes that what changes we've had to the various TIF districts, which would be incremental increases in property taxes this past year. They're predicting that we will have an additional $310,000 coming in, which is a 17.6% increase. And you'll see a lot of that's coming out of the consolidated, which is your mall area and some other, and even, I'm trying to think where all it is. It streams over on Water Street, and it gets down into Riverside Park, and it gets up into the East End. That's all in there. There's a separate fund for the junction itself and the motel up there, and Bill will probably over time tell us more about that, because I think he has some other projects that may be moving in that same direction. So anyway, that's basically, you know, at the bottom of that, it's showing that we had, you know, from 2021, we had a $249,000 increase, 21 to 22, $209,000 increase, 22, 23, $443,000 increase, 23, 24, $393,000, and then this year looking at 310. So we've had a nice steady growth, which again is what I tend to call the fire hose where, you know, there was a time we were giving money back to the school and the airport and everybody because we weren't using the money, that we weren't using the funds. We were not passing, we were passing it back to them. All of a sudden, for the last number of years, it's been quite a firestorm of just projects, which is fantastic for the city itself. So anyway, so that's kind of an update there. We should next month or in June, we'll get the other stuff. Nothing really new on Lexington Village. The financials there have not changed to speak of. I think we're pulling something, we made a motion last month to pull something out, I think the construction fund for the sidewalks, because we had some money left over from the original construction stuff, so I think you'll see that probably hit next month or whenever we pay our first check for that. All right, I will make a motion that we accept all the financial stuff in both the TIF, non-TIF, and Lexington Village residential TIF. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by a sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. That motion passes. Okay, luckily, here's Bill Tuppy.
Hey,
We've got a few resolutions. that
break a
those-
record on minutes. Let's do this. First one up is the Baker Tilly feasibility analysis for the potential hopeful hotel down at Riverside. Sometimes it feels like the cart before the horse, but trust me, it's the structure we got to go through to get to an incentive that might be appealing to lure this hotel. So essentially, I contract with Baker Tilly. We'll get together on the scope of work, the project cost, and we'll kind of back into what we anticipate the assessed value will be. Based on the assessed value, we know all the calculations of how the taxes work, and we get to what the future tax would be if the hotel comes down there. From there, I can back into that number and project what we would call a developer purchase bond for this hotel. It's exactly what we did for Home to Suites. But for now, it's just the analysis, and it's $2,456.25. Just to give you an idea, it's about $11.5 million project, and it's estimating out to probably be assessed right at $2.4 million, which then goes into about a $90,000 annual tax. So if we get to the point, hopefully we're there, we're close, I would be coming back to you to do a developer purchase bond for that hotel project. Good thing is, it would be no capital out of your pocket, no money. It's basically a fancy way to do a reverse abatement because retail, hospitality, those type of industries do not qualify for tax abatement, only manufacturing. So it's kind of the way to give them an incentive. It's basically a tax incentive, but we've got to go through all these things to even get to that point. So my request today is for Baker Tilly for $2,456.25.
And this typically is, like with Home to Suites, this was the only really financial stuff we did for them. So there's nothing, we're not giving them something else, and it probably varies on each case, but, it was kind of nice in a way, because it didn't really cost us anything at the front end. Sometimes we're doing infrastructure, so we're gonna put in sewers, lights, sidewalks,
Essentially, if this comes to fruition, it would be, and it's an $88,000 annual tax, what I would be promoting would be that you would essentially get about $25,000 a year. They would have the rest in forgiveness for 15 years. But right now, you're getting zero down there. So kind of do the math, and I think it's the best way to do an incentive without actually infusing cash into the project.
Bill, is this sort of precursor for establishing on the bank's TIF, or is it an existing TIF already?
Well, it's in an existing TIF, so what we would do at a minimum is carve out the hotel as its own TIF. You have to for a developer purchase bond. Then after 15 years, 20 years, whatever you deem that number to be, then it just converts into its own TIF for the remainder of the TIF.
And is this a process for estimating future potential tax liability based on assessed values? Is that standard for the TIF process?
Yes, and since it would be a new build, you would get 100% of that increment.
Right.
There's
Okay.
nothing existing.
All right. I'll make a motion to accept Resolution 2025-323 for Baker Tilly in the amount of $2,456.25 to come out of the downtown TIF district.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Stan, what's
All right.
ready?
Oh, good. We still got three.
You go.
All right. All those in favor signify by sign of aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes three in favor, 0 opposed, and 1 abstained. All right. Moving on to Bill Cuppy.
Next up's the Career Center. This is something we've been doing for, I think, 2 years now. This is our third year. And a reminder, we had Lewis Cass come in last month. We can do 15% of any new revenue from every TIF district. Lewis Cass has the industrial park. Logansport Community School Corporations are in consolidated and downtown districts. So if you look at those 10% of those two revenue streams, you're right at about $250,000 a year that you can put into these workforce development training programs. They have not been here yet, and we're into May, so that's a good thing. The request today is for basically a new greenhouse. It's $59,951.71. The program itself has 90 students in the ag pathway at the Career Center. The LHS biology department also uses the greenhouse. From what I've seen and heard, it's in desperate need. It's basically, I wouldn't say collapsing, but it's lost its functionality. So the request is to, and I tried to break out the different groups that are involved in this, but the request is just under $60,000 to fund the new greenhouse.
This is the same project that was presented to us a meeting or two ago, or no?
No, last month was Lewis Cass's project.
Yeah.
This is Logansport.
It's strangely, both of them are greenhouses that they're fixing up. Yeah.
The 250 was the absolute total across the board that Logansport schools got.
Actually, it's 250 for Logansport and 47,000 and some change for Lewis Cass.
Right.
Based on what districts they're in.
So this would still leave them close to 200,000 for the rest of the year they could theoretically request.
Correct. Now, they admittedly, through your help over 3 years now, are running short on request, which is a good thing. Not to say something won't come up of $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, but you guys have basically replenished the main things. So they're in really good shape.
This is an area that I have mentioned to Matt at the urinal in here just a few minutes ago. That potentially, I don't know what the future of the farmer's market and the incubator kitchen is. We gave money last year to the culinary department at Logansport, and they actually transformed the old home economics stuff into a commercial kitchen. And I've been at a few different events where they have catered it when they have all the same stuff you'd see in a hotel where they're bringing food out hot and that kind of stuff. But we do have an interesting opportunity, I think, if they don't have funds to use there, some kind of a joint venture where the farmers market would meet with the school and say, and I say I don't know your plans, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but there's a potential to say that these kids in the summertime could work in some kind of program with the chef that they've hired to get experience on doing things. I'm not sure if there's what events are planned to come out of there, but obviously in the big picture, we're looking, they got an incubator kitchen. They have I've heard stories of how, chefs want to get started, don't have the facilities, this facility there, then they go on to open their own business, restaurant, whatever. So this may be an area where, if there's money that's been earmarked, and if they can work together with the schools, it could be something that could be of value to them, and it could be a program where the school might also want to be a part of this. We work hand in glove on something like this. So anyway.
Another perspective too, after our presentation by Lewis Cass, I reached out to USDA because they historically have a pretty good track record of funding educational programs in agriculture. And of course, they have zero money to disperse most likely for the rest of the calendar year, if not the foreseeable future. So this might have been something that would be grant funded previously, but currently that's not an option for them. So once it does start up, I was planning on reaching out to the people that presented from Lewis Cass and letting them know, hey, USDA will literally help you write this grant to get that funding, but until it's back on board, it's not really an option for them. So,
Moment to give Bill Cuppy a pat on the back, because this program through the RDC has been around for 10 years or so. And Bill had talked to the Century Career Center about this, and for whatever the reason, they didn't take advantage of it. And then they had a change in administration there, and all of a sudden, Bill became a hero.
They were
The
very,
shoulders around the.
I didn't have to convince them very much.
Yeah.
Matt Lang jumped on board real
Yeah.
quick. Yeah.
So it's been nice to have that, because, some of the examples in the past of things they've done, well, both schools had like welding situations where their welders were not being used because they were broken down and old. In their building construction stuff, the kids were using corded drills and saws and stuff. They'd come out in the market, everything's battery operated. They're going, well, where do you get these batteries? I mean, they just weren't weren't prepared for the industry because they couldn't afford to spend money. Well, those drills still work. Why should we buy a new drill? Well, but the world's moved on. So there's been a lot of those kind of examples that have helped them. And say, like the culinary kitchen thing, that was something that in their own budgets they didn't have the money to do. So it's been quite a good relationship with Bill. Bill he started the fire, and it's been growing. And then Lewis Cass took advantage of the program last year and this year. So it's been nice to have that out. And we typically, as Bill said, because the Lewis Cass is only in the industrial park district, we tend to use that tip, 15% of that tip for them, and the other 2 tips go towards the Logansport schools.
And there has been collaboration with the county. The county has an RDC out at Climbers, which is oddly, the Climbers populace is Logansport School District. So we have dibs to their money. And last year they funded, I think, $110,000 for the new fire rescue program. So it's kind of been a collaborative effort.
Okay, I'll make a motion to accept resolution 2025-324 in the amount not to exceed $59,951.71 for the education training program. Recipient would be Century Career Center, and it would come out of equally out of the downtown fund and the consolidated fund. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion, questions? All right, all those in favor signify by a sign of aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 4-0. Okay, next, Bill?
Next up is the land acquisition at Eastgate. I gave you a heads up a while back that I was going to be going to city council to go through the process of them conveying the property to you. They've done that. Now I'm going to come to you to accept it. You don't have to accept it. I hope you accept it. The 2 conditions that your board mentioned was a satisfactory phase 1 and 6 months help with utilities of the building. That should be in Dwayne's lengthy minutes from last month. So I took that and I put that in the resolution that I wrote today. It's the 4th whereas and the 5th whereas is the satisfactory phase 1 and the utilities. They have an Eastgate fund that they can pull the utilities for the remainder of the year. Or If we transfer it before then, they're not going to, obviously, they want to pay it the rest of the year. But they have agreed to pay it the rest of the year. So that's in your resolution to accept these 3 parcels. The plan going forward, if you do accept this, you'll see next on your agenda is 2 appraisals, which are Indiana code requirements. Once those are back, it would go to an RFP. I'm going to ask probably council or mayor administration to figure out a solution to Braves, whether it be an agreement or whatever, before that hits any RFP process. From there, I would see the other 2 the lot out front behind the and then the building that used to be the old Ivy Tech would be an RFP. We do have about 3 interested parties in those things. So I do anticipate this will actually be where you actually sell something and it's not us giving something away. But the first process would be to accept the land. Phase 1, I've already contacted Dave Morris and Kelly Lehman to see what we have to do to get that started. And then we'll do the RFPs once we get the appraisals back.
And there is value. The Popeyes that's going in up there, I think they paid $242,000.
$375, I think, or 400.
Okay, so roughly, so they paid that much just for the land up there. So, you know, we have struggled with that building needing a new roof for a long time. And this is a case that, you know, the property itself has value, which could either help fund the roof or not. There's also, if you go in your packet at the very back, it's basically in the section where I'm going to discuss all the maintenance of properties, there is a drawing of the Eastgate thing. Dwayne, why don't you come down the bottom of the whole. Okay, little. I think it's down farther. Yeah. Yep, okay, so that's Eastgate Plaza. And what Bill's talking about here is, if you look down at the bottom, that Speedway is off to the left there, and Braves is off to the right. Right now, there is a parcel of land that is next to that area that Braves use for parking. That yellow square there is actually owned by the city. So it's something we want to be aware of, that we don't, you know, do something where we put them in a position where they don't have parking for their thing. Most of the tenants up there are very wonderful, especially that big one at the end there. They're very generous. Football games, track meets, you know, everybody's parking there. But they do have, you know, so I don't see a big problem if somebody did it, but we don't know if all of a sudden somebody would tear that down and build a restaurant or restaurants or whatever. Then, you know, we make sure that the tenant is there, doesn't get caught in the crossfire. So that's what Bill was mentioning about the Braves situation. And you can see even in this picture, you can see how many cars are parked in that area. Okay, I will make a motion to accept, oops, I'm sorry, you held your hand up, and I forgot about you. I forgot about you.
But I just wanted to touch on the phase 1 piece. I don't think that it should be contingent on your guys accepting it. We should absolutely do a phase 1, but before it's transferred to a private developer. It would just be extra money that we don't necessarily need. Ultimately, it's city-owned. You guys are a city entity. This is really kind of what the role of the Redevelopment Commission is for. If we were going and purchasing it from somebody else and it wasn't already in our name, it would make sense. That's what we do it on all of those that are not already in the city's name, but when they're already in the city's name, kind of like Patriot Park or the Jefferson property, then we go and do the phase 1 afterwards, because there's a tight window for when those are even, they're useful for information, but for the liability protection, it's like a 6-month window. So what we really want to do is to get it started, yes, but not have it finished before you guys accept it, but we finish it when a developer, whether it's 1, 2, or 3 different entities getting these parcels, then we can put the correct entity names on the phase 1, and then it's actually useful for the developer. So that's my opinion on it. I think that's
Yeah.
kind of the process for the redevelopment commission. It's kind of the typical process when the city is giving property that it already owns to the redevelopment commission.
Right.
Do you know if, so we recently had the issues with property taxes that showed us that our possession of a property is different from city possession of a property. Do you know if EPA recognizes our two entities as
Yeah,
being the same
yeah,
in terms of the liability?
We went through this, Kelly had to, maybe 6 months back, dig through and find the founding ordinance for this, and then all the references in state code, and so we've gotten approval for the EPA grant to utilize our funds that way.
We're not accepting any EPA liability
No,
in terms of
no,
not doing the
nothing
phase
that
one.
doesn't already fall under the city's umbrella, and ultimately, this is what the redevelopment commission is for, is to spur the redevelopment of these types of properties. Sometimes we go out and get them, and therefore we want to, stop the liability there. When we already have them, we'll use the phase one if we can do the grants and all that kind of stuff as an incentive to spur the redevelopment. But we, as a city, already hold the liability on this.
Okay.
On that same topic, since Kelly's back here, my understanding is that Kelly's met with the county attorney, and that the question that was in place was the city has an identification number for itself, kind of like a tax ID number, and we're using the exact same number. So when they transfer land to us, the county was saying, well, we needed to pay, like it became like taxable. A lot of confusion when I talked to them. They're like, well, we need to see your RLC Corporation. We need to see. They had a bunch of stuff they want to do. And I believe that Kelly met with them, and it seems like as if now there is an understanding that, we shouldn't, that we should not have to go from the city to the RDC and then refile tax exempt information forms and stuff like that. Now, the internal question is, are they looking to refund us anything? We're not, I think Dwayne's crossed his fingers, but I'm not sure we're expecting to get anything back there. But in theory, I think that we are just Stanton or whoever is maybe agreeing. Here comes
I guess
Kelly.
the question might,
Have an agreement, we do have a meeting at 1 o'clock today with those powers that be. There's room for argument on the Indiana statutes
Oh, great.
about, it was us to get it done for the taxes were due, and I found out the day before that Dwayne had already paid his taxes.
We paid the A side, we didn't pay the B side yet, so.
Yeah, so one of the thoughts is let's go make a fight about $12,000, whatever.
Yeah, it was like 13,000.
Plus-
I think we paid the first half, which was 6 something.
Plus, we had the farmer's market that we paid for. So
Yes,
it's a pretty good number.
which was a pretty, yes, we had that in. The farmer's market was another pretty good chunk. I think, about 4,000 in total. So we're about 10,000 in this year.
I think the disagreement with the county is not right now with the county attorney, it's with the officials in their handbooks, or interpreting the handbooks, because they refer, it gets to be where they've written the definitions. We are a public entity in the city as opposed to municipal government. And so when they use that term, we have to look back at another statute that defines that as city government on there. And then when you look at the taxing statute, it goes by, anytime you change, these things have to be filed and have to be done, and then you have to apply to get the discount, even if you had the discount. But it's talking about, I think, other entities that are not like we are.
Right.
In the public entity.
Yeah.
So they're bringing some of their people here today at 1 o'clock about how we record liens. I didn't realize we had the extra money because the soft approach would be, okay, we aren't going to seek a refund.
Right.
I understand the process, except that taxes and we paid it. We didn't
Right.
make an objection or saying, hey, we'll eat the 5% penalty for pretty much while we get it resolved. Do that, so.
Yeah, there seemed to be quite a confusion, I I think that was in the assessor's office maybe, but just the fact that, you know, they're looking at like as if this RDC was a corporation on its own that was, you know, they didn't have a connection there. I mean, they want to know, you know, they want to see the last year's financial statements. They want to see, I mean, all that kind of stuff. And it was really like, is this really like, you know, is this what you do the Parks Department to or some other department of the city? And, you know,
We tried,
you
in
know,
the past, but sometimes we wanted to separate utilities from the city.
okay,
Oh, no. You know, they all have the same tax ID number.
right.
Well, at least we've gotten that figured out on the EPA side to answer the question. And so I just wanted to revisit that part. I know, well, depends. But just the fourth whereas with the phase one, we will do a phase one, so we'll know exactly what's going on there, but it really just makes sense to do and finish when we know the names or the LLCs or whoever is actually taking on the property.
Right. And our current plan was when this stuff would happen, we would then now file the Form 136, I think it is, something like that, at the same time. So if it doesn't work out with the county, we just assumed before that, you know, we were, like when the city gave the farmer's market that, we gave it back to them, that there was shouldn't have been a tax consequence with there. And they said, oh yeah, there is, because you guys.
In divorce cases, for instance, no money changed hands.
Right,
You have to file that.
right, yeah.
But
So,
I mean, it's a simple issue. Nuisance, so once we get the system moving, that's what makes them happy.
yeah,
That's the chief price to pay. It's probably good for seniors to have
yeah,
it on the record.
yeah, I agree. Now, when we take on a property that was taxed before, that's a whole different situation. We have to do that. We have to say, hey, it's moved from taxable to non-profit or non. Yeah,
We are,
yeah, yeah,
Catholic Church,
yeah,
run out and have to file King's X or
yeah, yeah.
it's good.
Okay,
And they change it.
yeah. No, we appreciate you chasing us down because we weren't sure how to politically get that done, to. Well, yeah, we were kind of worried that we we'd get penalties if we didn't get it paid on time, so we kind of did what we've done. Attached to this resolution is also the city council resolution that they did, if you want to reference that, which was their resolution 2025-124. All right, so then I will make a motion to accept resolution 2025-325.
Sorry, real quick, before we get that far, does that mean the city council will need to go back and revise their resolution as well?
So you're gonna have to, you need to
my eye
amend your
twitch.
resolution.
Sorry,
to
Bill.
take out-
All you need to do is,
I'm here to pick nits.
Whereas you can't take it until you get to phase one,
Yeah.
so.
That's what I was looking for.
It's not my requirement. It's something you had asked, so I'm good with.
I mean, I agree with what you say. We shouldn't necessarily require it, but are we allowed to pass this resolution if it doesn't match the city's resolution, I guess is my question.
well, worst case scenario, we can amend theirs if we feel we need to do that at their next meeting.
Well, I don't see it mentioned in theirs. We could also just.
It's in there.
There's section 3
Section 3 is
towards
Okay.
the bottom.
Oh, I see. Okay.
It says the transfer is dependent upon a phase one. I was just a little worried about the phrasing.
Could we just modify this resolution to say that, we change the, whereas, we accept the fact that it's in process or something like that?
Could we just say, whereas the transfer is no longer dependent upon a satisfactory phase one?
Just take the transfer statement out.
It's not a condition.
You just
precedent,
remove it. It's not
just a
it
condition.
won't be a condition.
So, you might want to make a motion that says we're going to,
I'd like to make a motion that we remove the whereas the transfer is dependent upon a satisfactory phase one.
I'll make a second. Is there any further discussion?
Thanks, Jacob.
All those in favor of removing that clause signify by sign of aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. That motion passes. So now we are back to current.
That's all right.
You make a good point, Jacob, thank you.
So now we'll vote on the current 2025-325 with that change. I'll make a motion to accept it with the correction that was just made. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by sign of aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. The motion passes.
All right. Staying at Eastgate for Resolution 2025-326. We're trying to expedite the process and get this thing moving. As I said, Indiana Code requires 2 appraisals. I'm here on behalf of Erin for this. She has already ordered the 2 appraisals and is going to pay for them, but she is requesting that you would pay for them. Because you cannot dispose or transfer a property without this 2 appraisal thing. So even if it's not the people I have in mind, or if it's 5 years down the road, you're gonna have this. So that's why she went ahead and just ordered them. This is for $3,300 to both Sheldon Holsinger, the appraisal shop, and Metzger Property Services.
And those 2 contracts are attached to that, so they're behind that for Metzger and for Sheldon, whatever his name is.
We did get Ethan Manning last month to amend a bill to raise it, but we could only get it up through committee to $50,000. And this is obviously more than $50,000. So it used to be 25, we're up to 50 now through legislation. Our goal is we just find it as meaningless money that RDC has to spend on these appraisals, but thanks.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to accept resolution 2025-326 in the not to exceed the level of $3,300, which is for the appraisal of the Eastgate property. 2 appraisals required, and they're listed here. It'll come out of the consolidated TIF fund. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by a sign of aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. The motion passes.
Next up is the, where are we at? 2025-327. Exact same thing I just said, but for Banks of the Eel. So it'd be, I think there's 3 lots down there. The agenda says 2, but there's, no, must be 2 lots. So anyway,
It's up in the heading, obtain property tax appraisal for 2 lots located on the banks of
Yeah.
the Eel.
We probably already did the one house, when we purchased it. Those appraisals might still be good.
yeah, it was a house. Oh, no, it's not. My request to them was for all 3 lots. There's three lots physically down there. There's one that there's a small one by where the house is. There's one where the house was, that's 2, and then the big piece that goes along the north.
A phase 1 would usually be attached to a property, though, not a structure, wouldn't it?
This is appraisal.
Oh, appraisal, sorry. I got sidetracked. I was looking at the next one.
You're eager. So, now this is for, on the banks. And I've ordered through Sheldon, he has agreed to do it. I'm yet to hear back from Metzger. But I put a higher number in there, so when he does return. So it's up to not exceed $3,000.
So Bill, in section 2, it shows parcels to be appraised are, looks like just 2 numbers there.
Yeah. I think, and my apologies, this was sent out.
We can always modify this to
There is,
include another parcel.
oh, and I have it, the third parcel. It is 3 parcels, my apologies. And the additional parcel is, you want it for the record, 09-17-44-112-019 decimal 000-010. And that's for where the home sits, where the home did sit, that lot. I think since it went from a structure to no structure, we need to get a value. Probably worth more.
So I will make a motion that we amend Resolution 2025-327, adding a third parcel, which is number 09-17-44-112-019.000-010. We'll add that parcel to this, so we will also change the description in the title from the appraisal of 2 lots to 3 lots. Is there a second?
I'll second.
First on this. Okay, all right. So to make this change, all those in favor signify by a sign of aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. So the motion passes with 3 votes in favor, none opposed, and 1 abstained. All right, now, we're back.
Still on the banks, and you'll see on this that third parcel is on there.
Wait a minute, we need to still vote for this too. That was just to change it. Okay, so now I'll make a resolution to accept Resolution 2025-327 with the amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by a sign of aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. I assume 3 in favor, 0 opposed, and 1 abstained. Okay. You're on, Bill.
Okay, on the banks. The environmental I have from BCA, to kind of echo what Jacob was talking about. We are going to tee them up to do the Phase 1 ESA to the end. And if I land the hotel, then we'll import their entity name in it and then complete it. Because they're only good for 6 months, these Phase 1. So they have agreed to perform it, get it to completion status, and then see where I come with this hotel. They are quoting me $2,750, and we do want to do all 3 lots just to be done with it. That's my request.
I agree with that approach. It costs the same to assess one lot as it does the other 2. So,
You said you agree with that?
I do.
Okay. Like, good. So do I.
Now we're moving.
At no extra cost, I mean.
All right. So I'll make a motion to accept Resolution 2025-328 for the 3 parcels on the banks of the Eagle River, not to exceed $2,750, and it will come out of the Consolidated TIF District Fund. Is there a second?
second.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by a sign of aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. The motion passes, and I assume 1 abstention. So there'll be 3 in favor, 0 opposed, and 1 abstained. And you,
Yes, Bill, I did have one question about that. You said that the time validity for an ESA is 6 months?
I believe that's correct. Jacob, is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, sometimes if it goes a little over, you can pay not nearly as much for them to update it, but it still does need to happen to get the protection from the circle life.
Okay.
But on their extension, you have to have those dates to kick that clock down.
Right.
Within that 6-month parameter.
Okay.
All right, my last one, I hope. Nope, I got 2 more, don't I? We're on the sidewalk thing, aren't we? There is if you recall, we did a public bid for the Lexington Village sidewalks, which has already been approved, and the contract's done, and they're starting soon, but looks like there was a $38.09 charge from the Ferris Tribune, which is Indiana Media Group. That invoice must have come into somebody, I didn't see it.
Came into the clerk treasurer's office.
So I'll make a motion to accept resolution 2025-329 to be paid to the Ferris Tribune, whatever it's called here,
Indiana Media Group.
Indiana Media Group, in the amount of $38.09, and that'll be taken out of the consolidated TIF fund. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? And we need to.
I'm not here to vote, I'm just here to make Bill's eye twitch.
So you're to abstain.
I've only done it once so far.
You may have a new.
I'm not done yet.
Abstention. Gotta start keeping a chart here on the wall, start marking. Okay, so all those in favor signify by a sign of aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. 3 in favor, 0 opposed, and 1 abstained. Okay.
I think it's my last one. This was a late arrival yesterday. I was waiting on contractors. At the gallery, I work downtown, I drive around a lot, I look at buildings, and that's been one that I don't want to say I've been aggressively pushing, but I've wanted it fixed up, to put it nicely. Awnings, windows, paint. So anyway, I've gotten them to this point of wanting to do it. They had been doing things that you can't see, some elevator work, roof work, other things like that. But specifically, what I'm looking at is to assist with the exterior improvements of the gallery, which would include paint of the front, awnings all the way across, not just a little section, and working on the windows to restore those to where they're presentable. The MSRP program did not include, for whatever reason, don't want to get into the back and forth of why that is. I've heard multiple stories. The gallery was not in the MSRP program. There wasn't room for them. Nevertheless, their competitor was in it. I am proposing that we do a 50% reimbursement of this cost, and it would come from discretionary. Budget-wise, we typically will do anywhere from $250,000 to $300,000 a year in economic development stuff through TIF. But since it's a personal property, which I talked about earlier, I don't want to run it through the revolving program because that's a 15% specific program. I don't like to get out of the parameters. So I would rather go through discretionary because it's allowed by SBOA. So my proposal is that RDC funds $19,588.84, which represents 50%. To my knowledge, they haven't requested, at least in my 11 years in this position, they haven't requested any that type funding. I did look back. They've been in operation there since 1975, and they're paying approximately just under $12,000 a year in taxes that I can't see where they've ever requested anything in return for that. So that's my request.
And I will say, we had two other cases where both Mingland Jewelers and the Nest missed the first bat by the apple on that downtown revitalization thing. We also, as far as the 50% part of it, we had to come back and fund that more than once because it was during COVID and prices of stuff changed, that kind of stuff. So I think it's reasonable. I think that this property, when we fixed up downtown, it spurred some other people to say, I'd like to improve my property also. And, they, for whatever the reason, they were not on the first thing. I think this is a good thing to do. Okay, I'd like to first make an amendment. So make a motion on Resolution 2025-330 to add the discretionary fund as the fund that will come out. We didn't have that on the first version. So add that to that. I'll change that to discretionary fund. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor signify by sign of aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign.
Where do I not have discretionary fund?
Where it was gonna come out of.
I have it in section 1.
Numbers need to be added to
Oh, the numbers, okay.
numbers, is what he's asking for.
Okay, gotcha.
Sorry, so we're just putting the number on that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so 4-0, we're adding the discretionary number to that. Okay, now we go back to the resolution. So I'll make a motion to accept resolution 2025-330. And this would be for the oh, by the way, before I say that, there is a picture back in the page 3 of 6 of their stuff. It's kind of small, but it does show the awnings, how they would look across with all 3 of their sections having awnings above all 3. The one in the middle having the gallery logo on it, much like it used to be. So that is that. Okay, so then I will make a resolution to accept resolution 2025-330 for the Carico Gallery Company and not to exceed $19,588.84, which is 50% of the total expenses of the project, and it will come out of the discretionary fund. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by a sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. The motion passes.
Thank you.
Bill is done. Okay, this should be fairly quick. I just want to give you an update on our property maintenance stuff. Originally, I thought I could get us better pricing by going around to all our properties and bidding it out to multiple people, and there was multiple interests, but some want to do some things, not other things. So anyway, as I was doing this, the grass was growing. So we've gone back to, for the moment, using the fellows that did the work last year, H&H Landscaping. And as I say, we would kind of come to a better agreement. And as I say, we're at this point billing monthly or by the job each time. We had situations where, in Lexington Village, when they start working on a project, we're not cutting the grass anymore, but they were billing us for grass cutting from when that was being done. At the same time we're doing this, we got the All Saints property that needed to have grass done. So it's kind of in flux. What I've given you here in your packet is what I'm trying to use for him of what we're going to maintain and what properties. So basically, the yellow sections of all these drawings are all of the grass or the properties we're maintaining. When we got Eastgate just today, there's an area in the alley there that they have not been maintaining, and so I don't know what we'll do there, but we'll be consistent. We'll not maintain it either. So anyway, these are all the properties we have. We have the banks of the river. We've got the Tangy Street, which is I guess the next one is the All Saints. We got Lexington Village, and on the Lexington Village, the properties that are in orange are the ones that are done, and so they're no longer cutting the grass in those areas. They're cutting grass in all the yellow areas. And then we've got Tangy Street, And then we also have Eastgate Plaza, which again, doesn't have, right now, I think there's no maintenance to be done at the moment. Though we will have to think, if we still have it when it gets to be snow time, currently the city of Logansport, street department is shoveling their snow. So I don't know whether, hopefully we'll be done before then, so. And we'll deal with that if we don't. All right, so that's just information there. Now it's time for the section of the meeting we've been looking forward to. With all our guests here, they've been very patient sitting there. I think they're all still awake too. So these are all, just to give a preface of what we're getting into here, we have 3 different groups. They're looking for some financial support from us. It is one of those weird gray areas that we get into. They are all nonprofits, and thus puts them into kind of the discretionary fund type field of stuff. I think there's also, in most of these cases, an economic development type situation where they all are going to do things that will increase the economy of Logansport. So that puts them in kind of another bracket also, which puts them in what I call the gray area. So our first presenter this morning is the Parks Department with Jan Foley in a project at Riverside Park. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you.
This is what I didn't have at the last month's meeting. And we've got pictures today too, so, let's start, here on this one. Okay. Oh. So this is for Riverside Park. It is in the TIF district in that area. The area, I'm going to try to, can I enlarge that somehow?
You can go up to the top and enlarge it.
Oh, here, okay.
The 19.4.
Yeah, oh, here. Okay, now it's. Okay, so here is the carousel, McHale Pavilion, and this is the area that we're talking about right here for Riverside Park. We did the 2 basketball courts and 2 pickleball courts, these 2 right here. And the fitness court right there. We did some trails, a trail that went through there, and additional parking right here. And of course, that's closest to the event center. And we utilized some of this parking shared basis with the event center. What I'm trying to do is come up with a grant, this Land and Water Conservation Fund. It is a $1 million maximum request for a $2 million project. And so what I'd like to see us do here is a new playground. Move this the playground is currently right here in this area. I'd like to take this whole area and make that the playground. And I'm talking about an iconic playground, something that will either have a theme of the river or the carousel or even a train theme, something that will stand out for the community, not just a regular playground that, so it will be more money to do that kind of playground. And this would include a shelter right here. This budget does include a splash pad right here, but I've already kind of feel like that's probably the one thing that's going to have to go. And then additional parking all up and down this driveway right here. which means probably the golf course will probably get moved to the east a little bit somehow, so, anyway, and then the idea is to have a roundabout there so you can come down here, drop people off to go to the river or whatever. You can, there's also a proposed overlook, and there's 3 different ones on this. There's one further east up the Eel River and one down towards the Vibrant Event Center.
And that's outside your dash line, so is that out?
Yeah, where I'm not gonna try to include that in this project. I think if we get the playground and the parking, that's gonna make in the shelter right there, I think those are gonna be some major changes for that whole area, because it'll open that up. There's an old, building there, it was like a shower house or something at one time. And, we've never removed it, we need to remove it. It'll probably require some, work to fill it, raise the level of it, because a lot of it is sunken. So it'll be up above the water level. And this is where the old basketball court was at, and we would take that out as well. And so all this area will be all new. Now, the other thing about the playground is it would require, or we want to do a poured-in-place safety surfacing. That means that it's a rubber surface for the entire playground. That makes it fully accessible to people in wheelchairs. It makes it easier for maintenance, and it's a long-lasting material that would make a difference in its appearance on a regular basis. So, handicap accessibility is one of the main goals of the Land and Water Conservation Fund. So is recreational opportunities. So showing that this is something different than what else is going on in the community. That's the other thing that they require. They always look for energy efficiency where you can. We tried to do some solar with the lighting over in the other section with that, but it ended up that we weren't able to do it. So, but in the end, it didn't make any difference. So, but that's what we did. The other project was the Land and Water Conservation Fund as well. And at that time, the maximum was $250,000, and so we received $250,000, and we I think we spent $500,000. So when it all came down, because that was right after COVID hit, and everything was beyond, you just couldn't count on any prices at the time. So anyway, I'm looking for a $2 million project, and so my request to you is $500,000. If that's not the amount that you're able to help me with, and if you would come up with $250,000 for this, I'm hoping to match that with the city, for the city as well. And we would have to probably just do the playground. I don't know how we could do everything that I want to do here. So I say you can see that. I just have extras. There are things in there that our staff can do some of the work, and we will if we need to. It's just that but like this playground, we try to either do a community build or we do the building. This playground probably will require professional installers to do that. So that's not something that that's part of the cost, I believe, of the playground itself. So yeah, it says it's installed for $750,000. So anyway, the splash pad at $275,000, I think that's pretty accurate. I think that's what we're spending, pretty close to what we're going to be spending by the time we finish the one downtown. So,
What's your estimate on the playground again?
pardon me,
What was the estimate you just said on the playground?
$750,000. Yeah, and it's on the second page, towards the bottom where it says park improvements and site construction. So,
Talk to DNR about the ratio of parking lot to play space in the budget for the?
I have not talked to them about that. I think that's part of their evaluation process. They took away the point system, and so there's nothing, it's not,
Gotcha.
it's really subjective, I think.
Okay.
I think it's,
That was the thing that jumped out at me, was if you're putting more money into the parking lot than the playground, I could see them holding that
not
over your
being
head.
happy with that, yeah, I agree, yeah.
And that,
What does it say for the parking lot? It just, it doesn't say specific, it says aggregate and, site lighting, turf grass, da, da, da. I'm sorry, it doesn't actually say parking lot. But I also think that, here again, this is a handicap accessibility issue that they would be supportive of.
it's a good plan, it's more of a, I was worried how the grant folks
Yeah.
would like it. Have you had experience with poured in place turf?
We have
Or poured in
some,
place?
we have some at Fairview Park.
Does it ever have any, like, damage from,
No, it's actually been pretty well maintained and pretty good to it so far.
talking to another parks board, and they don't like the poured in place, but that was one person's opinion. They're worried about people damaging it because it's harder to repair than the
And,
foam turf.
you can always do tiles, rubber tiles, that can be more easily replaced. If something were to get damaged, you can actually take the tile out and put it in a new one, so you can do things like that, so.
Jen, I note that this estimate, there's a note that it does not include any soft costs, which would include engineering, design, permit fees. Would that normally be about 15% or more of the total?
Well, he did include, that, I did,
Yeah, the bottom line, they've got
the
something,
second page.
administration, coordination, and management, and they've got 10%. And the one says, like in the one area,
It's got administration, coordination, management.
Is that just for the parking lot?
There's 5% on the park improvements, and there's 10% on the parking lot, it looks like.
it's an architect, is that who gets that?
So is that note just part of their boilerplate?
So this is still probably not totally final,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, it says administration, coordination, management, which not necessarily include engineering.
But it was something just to get the ball rolling,
Typically on something like this, we tend to try to match what the city council is gonna do. Did you say they're giving 250,000 or 500,000, the city council?
Well, if I go
Still
for a
talking.
$2 million project, I'm gonna need 500,000 from both the RDC and the city, from each one, yes. And I guess, part,
Everybody's looking at Dave.
Look at BJ back there with, I'm telling you, see,
but, and honestly, if you don't feel like this is the time for us to do this, both you and the council, then, I'll pull back. I don't, if I don't have to do this application right now, that's okay, but this is the only way we're gonna be able to do this project, honestly.
I know that it takes them some time until we start actually working on construction. Do you have a ballpark
Yes.
on when when we'd have to pony up the money? That might.
Right, and so what I'm asking for right now is not the money right now. The money would probably be 2027 before we actually would need it. So, from what I understand, is the DNR probably can get through it, through the applications and award who they want to award by the end of the year. And then, because it's due August 1st, so then they have to the end of the year, early 26. They pass it on to the National Park Service, and with the current state of flux in federal government, it's hard to know how quickly whatever reduced staff they have are going to be able to review these things. So I did get assurance from the DNR that the Land and Water Conservation Fund will continue to be in existence, so we can still apply for this. I don't know how much they're planning to allot of the money that the state gets towards projects at this point. So they use some for their own recreational, state parks and reservoirs. They use some of this money for that. So it's the big pot of money that they get. So anyway. You know what, I fully understand what I'm requesting. I do, and I guess I'm hopeful that you understand this is probably going to be the place that people are going to eventually migrate to, either if they're at the event center or the hotel or the river walk that we're eventually going to get. Then this is one of the things, especially people with children, they're going to eventually migrate to this direction in the park. And we really want a wonderful facility there for the community and for our visitors as well. So and I guess I hope you'll understand that.
For the new members, we currently have, we purchased the Dykeman Park driving range, and we have commitments there. We paid $100,000 up front, and then we've got $50,000 in November 2025, 26, and 27. So the timing of this thing, that would be coming off. That's $50,000 a year that's being done for that. So the timing, that would be coming off roughly at the time this would be coming on, but
I'm sorry, I forgot to show this to you. This doesn't show you what I really want it to look like at this point, but it does show you a nice large playground, fully accessible, and the shelter this area. I really like that shelter. I think that's a neat one. And then the nice thing is that this will be, the restrooms are off to this direction, so the restrooms are still accessible, or it will be fully accessible there. And the concession stand is also still within walking distance that direction. And then the carousel is over here, over this way.
from other meetings I've been in, it was mentioned it'd be nice. You know, the carousel people are always, it's always kind of not a struggle, but you know, they want to be busier. And right now our playground is the other side of the golf course. So by putting things down in this direction, it would give them, their customers would be closer if they're, you know, to their location.
So Jan, as far as looking at priorities within this overall plan, is the playground the most important?
Yes, it is, yeah. And it is in our CIP plan, our capital improvement plan, and it's been, you know, it's getting to be that time. It was, the one we have now was built in 1999, and it's definitely, and it's ready to be replaced. And by 27, it might be even a little, you know, we do our best to make sure that they're in good shape all the time, but there are things like rust and there's a plastic coating on the walking surfaces, and that's kind of starting to break away or break off of it. And we've already replaced 2 different slides over the last few years. There's a big what they call a typhoon slide that they really go around on, and we've had to replace that, and so, and the swings as well, that'll be a part of this project as well, so.
And it looks like you could get a playground project in for $1 million potentially.
Yeah, yeah, well, and of course, all the sidewalks and everything that's gotta go along with it, so, yeah. Any other questions? You can find these pictures on our website, with, our master plan. So, just go to the master plan and see documents if you wanna look at it closer. So, and I guess, I'm not asking for your decision today, but I would like a decision,
You have an August deadline, don't you?
August 1st is my deadline. Yeah, if you could do a resolution at the June meeting, that would be great. Okay.
These projects are always good if you can get them because of the matches, 50% match is pretty good. So if the community raises $1 million, they give you $1 million, which, if you get it, I mean, you're just applying too. But are you going to have something solid from the city council before our next meeting? I mean, will we know what their commitment is, or?
I don't know.
Okay.
I think so.
And I think it helps us too, if sometimes if we
I
realize,
think they're supposed to have a second meeting at some point in June.
That's a Monday, yeah.
That's what we had talked about that, so.
okay.
And, I mean, basically, here's what I put in the talk. I mean, I'm not opposed to the ideas down here. We're getting close to having this park finished. Like Bishop Park is pretty much intact right now. Fairview is pretty much a done deal, maybe a little bit over there, but I told her we'd sit down, finance may sit down with her CIP and see how it fits in there, is there things you have to take out to go with any of these numbers, whether it be 250 or 500,000. We plan to do that before we have a public meeting about it. And take it
I assume, just from my school side of things, that we're a little nervous not knowing exactly where the property tax dollars are gonna come in at. Is the city, I assume you're in the same position of kind of not knowing.
just got a Baker Tilly, we talked with them recently about meeting, Bill and I talked about possibly getting all the school board, city, TIF, and county together, explain how all this will work best for all of us at the same time. We're not trying to take money from the others, so it all works out balanced. And hopefully we can do that. I saw where DLGF just put out a statement saying they should have some clear guidelines real soon.
Hey, Jan.
Good.
So anyway, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Jan.
Hey, Jan, could you email us a copy of your budget estimate for John Michael?
Yes.
All right. In your packet, we have the Community Foundation. On your last 2 pages, I've got just 2 of the pictures they provided, and I think Dwayne's gonna have them all here. You guys are on deck.
I say keep my heart hat together.
Yeah. If it gets ugly, I just say, if I see you reach for that helmet, I'm heading for the door. Here, this is Deanna Crispin and Vicky Bird and Matt Llewellyn. The 3 amigos or the 3 stooges, I'm not sure which you guys are.
Either all work.
Thank you for having us this morning. Matt's going to lead our discussion, but we're here to answer any questions that you might have about the project.
Matt was on this board for at least 10 years. 8 years.
He was
And
taking notes on it.
well, he's with his construction knowledge, it was very valuable, and we appreciated having him on that time, because he always showed up to, unlike some of our school board members.
First off, I believe everybody here knows everybody else here at the table, but just for the record, Matt Llewellyn, Steinberg Construction. We are the construction manager for the project down there on Fourth and Market.
Deanna Crispin, president of the Community Foundation.
Vicki Bird, I assisted with writing the grant and helping with some implementation going forward.
So as Deanna said, I'm going to lead the discussion, the presentation today. The objective today is not just to inform you guys, but, if any of this gets out in the paper, just to inform the general public of what this project is. A lot of times it gets heard of as the farmer's market, and it's much more than that. Another objective is to get this out of that gray area you talked about earlier, Mike. This is an economic development driver for our community, as well as it's a redevelopment project for our downtown. So hopefully, in our discussion here, we can reflect that and kind of express where we need the city's help for assistance to get this project fully developed. So those aren't familiar with the location of this project, it's on the intersection of 4th and Market Street on the southwest or southeast corner. This doesn't necessarily depict what's going to be final construction as far as the roadways, so ignore that. But generally, the entire asphalt parking lot that's down there right now, the farmer's market's been utilizing, is going to be fully covered by a pavilion, which you'll see a rendering of later, which will serve as more than just an area for the farmer's market to occupy on a Saturday morning. This is meant to be an area that the whole community can enjoy, that as we have festivals and we have other outings in this area. Decades ago, we had the Iron Horse Festival that was in this area. We have Taste of Cass County and other things that happen. This is an area that can be utilized by the entire community, and we're just talking about the pavilion there. On top of the pavilion, we have the incubator kitchen here. The incubator kitchen intent, this kind of shows you the farmer's market layout, but the incubator kitchen intent is more than just to be utilized by the farmer's market as well. For those that don't know, Cass County is in a food desert. There are not many opportunities for people to come here, not just for dining options, but even just to get local healthy food. So the idea behind this incubator kitchen is to drive new entrepreneurs in the food industry, whether it be on the fresh food packaging side of things, or somebody starting their own business and that does not have any idea of where to go, what to do to be able to launch a business. So we don't even see this as just a Cass County growth opportunity. We see this as a regional growth opportunity as they look at people that don't have this in Lafayette. They do not have this in Kokomo. They do not have this in South Bend.
Probably within 90 miles.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
So we see this as a launching platform for not just Cass County, but our region. And as we developed these plans, as this became an idea at the beginning when this was presented to Lily with Vicki support through the Community Foundation and Deanna, it was that, we could be a great new farmer's market location with an incubator kitchen. But this thing did grow in size and scale. When we realized how much opportunity there is out there for our region, we didn't want to leave anything short. So as we've finished out the design, all that size and scale increases cost, right? To the benefit of this community, most of this project is going to be fully funded by the Eli Lilly Foundation. So unlike many of the projects that, most recently the YMCA and the Dykeman Golf Course and others, they require so much reach out to the community to ask for funds from local businesses. We hope that if we can get this thing fully funded by the grants and local support like the RDC, that request doesn't have to go out, so that those funds could be utilized for other local initiatives, which I'm sure we'll hear both before and after us today. So that's what today's request is. This project, like I said, you can see here in the middle, this is an incubator kitchen. I think I've got a zoomed in version. Let's see here. On a different slide. But a zoomed in version of this right here, that there can actually be 6 different food entrepreneurs in this incubator kitchen. You've most likely seen a recent announcement from the Community Foundation that they already have I can't remember how many star chef, but
Chef.
a chef, professional chef that's coming in from Grand Rapids and has already ran an incubator kitchen like this in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And our square footage of this facility, of the incubator kitchen, is very close to Grand Rapids, and they produce hundreds of food entrepreneurs. You got the numbers?
Yeah. So our chef Ryan Bohaus, he's been there for 6 years. We did a site visit when we were planning our proposal, and we were so amazed with their kitchen. Their kitchen is about the same size as ours, that he offered to stay in touch with us. He said, if you get the money, I'd love to help design it. And at the end of the day, he was so excited. He came to Logansport. He saw what we were doing here. He saw what they're doing at Bonus Pints. He saw what they're doing at People's Social. He said he could feel the energy, and he wants to be part of the rebirth of Logansport. So this young man, 40, is moving to Logansport to open and run our kitchen. While he was there in Grand Rapids, he's opened over 250 businesses. He currently has 54 entrepreneurs using their facility. They have 45 graduates who've gone on to establish brick and mortar businesses, created more than 500 jobs in Western Michigan, which I think speaks to the economic development side. And his role in our kitchen is to take people from the concept of a food idea through producing it and marketing. His services come free with rental of the facility. So he's there to walk you through an idea, a consultation, application process, getting ServSafe certification so you can work in the kitchen, marketing, social media, photography, and helping you to be a successful entrepreneur. The other side of our kitchen plan is a demo kitchen, which will be a teaching facility for, could be for the Career Center, could be for Purdue Extension, it could be for the chef to go in on days that the farmer's market is there and teach people how to use some of the healthy foods and vegetables that they're growing and selling out there.
Yeah, so today's request is really on the redevelopment side. I agree with Mike. I think on the programming side, which Vicki and several others in our community are working on right now, there's going to be great partnerships discussed through maybe that training grant side of the redevelopment commission. But today's request for hopefully a June resolution would be to help towards the redevelopment of that site. So far, we have redevelopment costs. Oh, one thing I didn't share on a separate one here, you guys should, or Dwayne has this at least. Is that report on this one, Dwayne? It is.
Somewhere.
Yeah. So we did have soil borings done, a geotech report for this project. Unfortunately, just like a lot of our downtown, not all construction that was demolished in the past got done the right way. This site, although it looks pretty with asphalt over it right now, has a lot of things underground. There's about 5 foot of backfilled material that contains brick and organic material that is not suitable to build atop of. So you're welcome to read through this great snooze fest. I know Ben's used to reading these, but back here, but essentially we have to go down with helical piers down to the limestone bed below. So our total site to date, our total site redevelopment, not including the electrical infrastructure that's required for this, so site development, remediation, soil remediation, and the helical piers are at the tune of $270,000. That's before any concrete goes in the ground or any even electrical gets brought to the site. With the electrical infrastructure, which is my understanding after serving 8 years on this commission, for the redevelopment costs and infrastructure, with electrical infrastructure, we're pushing closer to $350. So our request from this commission, without even discussing with the city on any future help that they may be able to provide, is to cover those costs of the site development and remediation. So we would hope you guys would entertain a cost of up to $300,000, if you would entertain that, for a June resolution.
Was this not included in the original estimates, or was it ineligible for the grant? Or?
So the remediation was not. So when the grant application was put in and those budgets were created, again, it grew a little bit in size and scale. The kitchen and incubator kitchen grew after what the original budgets were. But those budgets that we did earlier were presented to Eli Lilly to get a $5 million grant.
Yeah.
Fortunately, they awarded us a $5 million grant, of which only $4 million can go toward construction. The other have to be toward continued operational costs to make sure it's sustainable for a 5-year period, a minimum. So as the grant was awarded, that's when we say, okay, this is a possible project. So now we have to secure the land from the city, which they were graciously offering that land for the development of this project. And then they actually paid for the soil borings to be done after the grant was awarded. And that's when we found out the conditions we had. Those were costs that did not have to be paid for, the soil borings, until we knew we were eligible for the grant.
I assume the backfill is nothing that's a contaminant or something like that that can be put back on previous landowners that might have contaminated the land.
Correct. Yeah, it's just organic material and brick, unfortunately.
You mentioned those two things, and I was like, yeah, that's not going to get you any insurance money.
Yeah, it's not at all, unfortunately. Yeah.
So you have all the money for the kitchen, the appliances, and that kind of stuff. That's all.
Use any money you have.
Well, I'm trying to get an idea what you need. And I was like, this here, I mean, infrastructure is something that we do. We don't normally do it for people that are not businesses.
This is generating business.
Well, that's the thing. That's this whole weird State Board of Accounts thing where they've kind of divided out this. Before we'd say, yeah, this is
We
good.
are a business, we're just run as a nonprofit.
That's not, well, but we get our money back from tax dollars.
I understand.
So there's nothing you will do that will give us any more money. There's no return on our investment except for the citywide, this is what we live on. I mean, that's the gray that we live in. But it's a case where, in our case, our discretionary fund, we have our total, which is supposedly where this kind of stuff should come from. We currently have $255,000 total for the whole thing, and we'll get about $160,000 a year out of that at current interest rates. So I'm trying to think, but it is infrastructure, which is, and that part is interesting.
I have a related question. You talked about all the help that the chef would give potential business owners. So one thing that, actually I was just talking to my wife about this weekend because we tried to go to the Cuban restaurant that was the former lay downtown and they're out of business. Is the chef going to be able to provide, I guess, financial mentorship in terms of
That's part of his role.
the business planning for opening and maintaining a successful restaurant? Because it seems like we've had lots of good upstart restaurants that last 3 to 6 months and then go under because they don't go in with an appropriate business model.
Absolutely.
And part of the initial planning process, we had an extensive meeting with the Small Business Development Center. And so the chef will also, he has his own curriculum and his experience, but he also has worked in Michigan with their Small Business Development Center, and we will have a strong partnership between him and the SBDC to help with those kind of related issues.
So that it's not generating businesses directly, indirectly, hopefully it will make businesses more successful in Logansport.
Well, and it'll make local businesses more successful. Like I said, there is none of these in a 90-mile radius. And so as people from Lafayette look to launch a new business, if they can go to a commercial kitchen that they can't get anywhere else, get,
Coaching,
a
the
professional
mentorship.
chef, and then the SBA backing to be able to support something like this, those people are going to be coming from Lafayette, from South Bend, from Kokomo, and from all our rural areas
Which
too.
hopefully they stop at the gallery, they stop at Riverside Park.
Get dinner at Science Project or Bonus Pines.
Yep.
Just looked up Grand Rapids, got a population of 195,000. This guy wants to come here because he just got a vibe. You just sold him on.
We made a great case. He was so interested in helping us lay out the kitchen. He's an entrepreneur. He said he's done all he could do in Grand Rapids, and he was looking for a new challenge. He's 40 years old. He's Korean, and he has cooked in some of the most famous restaurants, Per Se, the Spotted Pig in New York, Chateaubriand in Paris. He's cooked with Gordon Ramsay, and he can't wait to get here. He's actually started work for us last week, started remotely working on budgets and schedules and events. He also will have the demonstration kitchen side that will be available to rent. So if McCoy's want to have a Christmas party and have the chef cook for them right in front of them, you'd have that opportunity, and that's another revenue stream that would be coming in.
And one might think that a South Korean chef tied between Star Plus Energy, South
So I was
Korean
just-
company,
I was just thinking
and
the
chip
same thing.
manufacturer, South Korean company, located right between, would be a perfect fit.
Matt, are you in a construction stall right now because of this
No.
running?
No. I think everybody's committed to see this through regardless. We're just looking for your assistance to help with the redevelopment of the property, to make sure that's one less roadblock from that early stuff we found, to make sure this project is a success without having to reach out to the community.
We're typically not in a role where we as an organization are asking for support, so this is new for us too, to be out and, you know, there are opportunities for us to do some other things, but part of our role is to serve the other nonprofits. And so, since this was part of the infrastructure piece, we felt it was appropriate to come before you.
So go back to the earlier question. So you have the money for all the appliances and all that kind of stuff?
We're close.
To put it boldly, the project, I mean, it needs another $1 million
Yeah.
to finish out. If 300,000 of it can come from the unknowns that we saw in this redevelopment of the property,
Just starting the
that
unknowns.
started the unknowns, that makes it a lot easier to achieve, you know.
What's the risk of any additional unknowns in the ground?
Everything's already been excavated now on site, so I think, we know we have to go down to limestone. There's no choice. We're taking helical piers all the way down to limestone, and that's a lump sum price, so
So your quantities are defined?
are defined.
Yeah.
Obviously, the cost of an industrial oven might increase over the next couple of years, but between now and the time you're ready to purchase them, but in terms of everything you can figure out now, you've
The
got.
timeline is that the pavilion will be done by October. The kitchen will be done by January.
Oh.
So we're on a really, really
That's a
fast,
tight schedule.
really fast track. We have prices for all the equipment, and,
Okay.
you know, if there's money in the school fund for that, if there's a partnership there with the Career Center, that could be an applicable use also for some of your funding.
Do you guys see that as do you see a partnership with the school as something that you might be interested in?
It's something we talked to the superintendent about.
Yeah.
Before we submitted the proposal, we had great support from the superintendent, from the city, Community Corrections, Logan's Landing, all of those groups had a part in the proposal.
So the chef he's open to doing whatever?
He is, he's very excited. I'm having trouble keeping up with him.
Okay.
He is-
What I was thinking was, you know, you got Lewis Cass also, who do not have a culinary school at all. And when I've talked to them in the past, they have a lot of stuff that, this happens in Mechaniqua, this happens over at this other school. They don't have a lot of stuff that's happening in Cass County for Cass County kids only. And
One of the considerations when we talked about early in the planning was the culinary students at the Career Center only get a partial day. So Mondays, there are very few restaurants that are open downtown Logansport. So Monday, you bring the Career Center kids down, 8 o'clock in the morning. They plan, they prepare, they serve, they clean up, they have that whole experience. And if you work downtown, you go down and buy your lunch. You know, and they have oversight with the chef, and they learn how to work in that environment. And he is open to that. I know he was teaching at classes at the university when he was in Grand Rapids and did all kinds of coursework and things for students.
yeah, I'm just thinking of the, you know, there are times that the Career Center does not max out what they are limited to. They also are times that Lewis Cass is not maxing out what they've got their things into. And I say, and Lewis Cass is, again, I'd like to take a tour out there because the guy I've talked to, it's a little sketchy as to what's going on where. You know, a lot of things are happening outside Cass County, and which is, I'm not sure that's, and I don't know what our rules are, you know, but at the same time, you know, they have trouble because they need to have, you got 15 kids sign up to afford a teacher. In this case, you've got a teacher that is available, and again, they could bring kids in to do culinary that are otherwise not doing that at Lewis Cass, and so that,
Well, I think there's opportunities for the alternative school, students that are there to come down, maybe on a one-to-one basis and do training with them. You know, he's open to all of those things. His real, he spent 20 years in the food industry already, and his strengths really are in teaching and coaching and mentoring and getting people to the next level. That's his real interest.
We just need to get him a building to do it in.
well, yeah. It's kind of ironic because back when we were getting tarred and feathered over an apartment building there, we were aware of the same problems under that soil. So had that gone forward, not sure what our role would have been, but if that apartment building would have gone there, we have the same problems that we would have been affording there, except that it would be a for-profit business. And interestingly enough, I mean, last year, you know, Jacob Thomas was talking about at the end of the parade, they were hoping to have some little booths and stuff and food stuff at the end of the parade cap, and this would be really nice for that kind of thing out there, where people could stroll there. And then they even were talking about having it where, I think it would even last longer than just the parade. We were going to have a week or two of stuff like that, and
Our chef actually led the Christkingle Mart in Grand Rapids. He organized it, planned it the last 2 years. So he's very experienced in that. We're excited. He's a real catch for our community.
And you could probably, yeah. There have been discussions with the Parks Department again, Event Center, Parks Department, you know, discussions of having a train that would go on the street. And we had trouble, we were wanting to, at one point, the Parks Department was wanting to have a thing with the Denzel Carousel people, have Santa Claus at the Denzel Carousel. But then during that season, they're in the business of selling events to businesses and stuff, so that they couldn't be consistent. But again, this could be a place where Santa Claus could be at, because we don't really have you know, the mall is kind of gone from that. We don't have that. Okay.
Any other questions?
Any other questions, anybody? Okay.
Well, thank you for your
Thank you.
consideration.
Thank you for your presentation. Okay, Malcolm, you're up. Whoops.
Sure.
That education program does not have to be a school. You don't have to tie it directly to
To the Career Center or to,
If the primary function is work training, like education purposes that they're doing, it still qualifies under Indiana code.
so they could stand
The
alone.
intent is to grow the workforce, to better compete globally and economically. It doesn't have to be like a school institution that does it. As long as they're formed like an institution that's educating people. So anyway, I can look further into it, but just keep.
Yeah, well, that's interesting, because you could have like an after-school program where you've got their chef. I mean, so you got the culinary school going on with the chef at the Career Center, but you could have an after-school type thing going on, and they could make requests in the same way that the
It could be
Career.
a synergy, but I just want to point out, it doesn't have to be tied to kids
Oh,
or a school.
oh,
It's a workforce training program.
it could be adults that are wanting to learn to be a
Yeah,
chef.
I just want to
Oh.
make that distinction that.
I'll let Applebee's know about that. Okay. You ready?
Well, thanks, everybody. My watch just told me it's time to stand, so I make this as quick as possible. I'm not going to do a slideshow today, but I just wanted to give a quick update on what's going on at the Memorial Center. You may have seen some construction activity over there. It's important for this group because it is a downtown enhancement, part of the revitalization. It's a key building within the city, and it has historical significance. You staying?
I guess I probably shouldn't stay. I might open my mouth.
So the historical significance of it just got a boost because we were able to, when it was first put on the National Historic Registry, it was listed as local significance. There's 3 levels of significance. There's local state and federal, and we have administratively got it elevated to state level significance, in part because of the history of the 1922 edition as a memorial to the returning veterans from the First World War. But the work that's been accomplished to date there has included the roof replacement in 2024. We're currently restoring, not installing new, but restoring the windows on the east elevation, and that'll be completed this summer. And then the next, we've also done the engineering, the structural studies, and the entire condition assessment for the exterior. And we're currently pursuing a grant through the Office of Community and Rural Affairs for $750,000 to do the exterior restoration work. So the work is going to go on for a long time. It's a long haul. It's going to be broken into phases with the exterior work first, and then the mechanical, electrical, plumbing work, then the interior finishing, and then the grounds, and making it completely ADA accessible. So this is really going to go over multiple years. And right now, though, it's probably, we're estimating about a $3 million project overall. But right now, for phases that we have, we've got a good funding plan in place, but there might be some gaps down the road. And I just wanted to kind of give everybody a quick update and make myself available for any questions that anyone has about what's going on over there, but also to get some feedback from RDC. Given the project that we've described, it's likely management under the recreation department of the city, and its ongoing role as a support facility for veterans. What if we had funding gaps down the road and discovered that we needed to get over the hurdle, how the RDC would visualize that project. So, is there just any thoughts about that? I mean, we've heard like a lot of sort of good projects today, the parts department, and also the pavilion, and in part those have a lifestyle quality to them. This would certainly have the same. So I assume that it's kind of the thing that takes us maybe a second seat to the types of projects that the TIFs are designed for, which is to promote tax revenues.
I can't think who was telling me, can't think where I was at. Someone was discussing, like, in the veterans case, they do provide services in some small office someplace or other.
They are currently tucked away it's under the county currently. It's in the county courthouse. There's 5,000 veterans in Cass County. About half of them are registered for services there. Some of them that are eligible and probably need services aren't getting it. You've got to go through the metal detector. You go to a little institutional room in the back that's small, windowless, and has a little pantry kind of thing. It's not a welcoming place for anyone. So even a lot of the eligible veterans now, actually, some of them are on Medicaid and not even applying for their VA benefits. So there's a need for that. There's also a high suicide rate within that group, and there's special services needed. And when the services aren't available, at least there's someone there to kind of direct people where they can go to get the services that they need. So that's one possibility. We were recently visited by the head of the State Veterans Administration, who was appointed by the current governor, and who is sort of getting his arms around the program, but in part, it looks like a lot of what's kind of carried in the county right now may move to the state level, so it may come at some point come under the state direction.
And I have had people talk to me about the old senior center where people, I was there on occasion, and there'd be like 30 people or more that were hanging out and eating lunch, and, and there's just some interesting groups that, and again, I presume in their case, they could no longer afford to support the services they were providing, but
And also
the need probably didn't go away.
a lot of youth programs too, Mike. So this would be a place that would serve really the entire community. And even I talked to the director of the YMCA the other day, who said that they do a lot there. They have a lot of programs for kids, but they don't nearly fulfill the need.
Well, I'll put on my school hat for a second, and I just was told that before we were doing, 67% of our kids in our schools were receiving free or reduced lunch program stuff, economic stuff. It's now moved to 72%. So we have a lot of kids that could use some help, and that could be, this is, I've also heard words that maybe the parks might be involved with this building in some way, and so that's another whole area that, and I know they've got a scholarship program at the Y. I don't know what all they can handle with that program they've got, and I think I talked to you and heard that the Y is not seeing this as any kind of a competition to them or a threat to them, so they are not.
Right. And part of the sustainability model, is that the place is rentable, but it is in the same way that the Penman Building or the McHale Complex is now. And most of the people I've talked to said they don't really see it as competing with, the larger event and more expensive event venues, because this would be directed toward more in the low to moderate income folks that would need to have a celebration of some kind. So that's really all I wanted to say about it, and just sort of plant the seed, and maybe down the road there'll be maybe something more formal presented and discussed with the group.
And I think probably, not to speak for the RDC, but I know sometimes you get into grants and opportunities where you need to provide that there is support from your community. I think we probably see that the kind of stuff that we deal with all the time. We probably see the need for what you're doing and what, so if you need, something from us that states that we think this would be a great idea, if the state would give us $1 million or whatever,
Absolutely, and the timing is right. We have the public hearing, the second of two public hearings will be on June 2nd, part of the city council meeting, preceding the city council meeting. And then the proposal is due for this first Okra grant is due June 20th. So between now and then, we're looking for letters of support and signals from the community that they support the project.
I guess you're at the phase where you've got to have the property maintained. If there's a future for that building, continuing to not maintain it is not one of the smart.
Yeah, the reason we're in the state we are now, right, is because of deferred maintenance, and part of that was when the building was owned by two owners that couldn't agree.
Imagine that. Okay. Anything else? Any questions, Suzanne?
No, thanks for the update.
Okay. All right. Now is the time for public comment. Well, I guess no. Bill, you get anything else? Okay. Public comments from anybody? No? All right. Any board member comments? Okay. We're going to adjourn this meeting. Thank you. Hey, 2 hours and 4 minutes.
I did have one.
That's a short one.
Hey, Mike,
I need to.
I have one question. Take a minute.
Oh, I'm sorry.
5 pages.
What did you have?
I said, I just wondered, do you think that minutes might be more than 5 pages?
Yeah. What do you think, Dwayne? We talk it?
All right, I'll meet you.
Yeah, I've got to sign some documents too. I got to go wrap in too.
Yeah. In fact, I didn't, I was looking down, I didn't see it.
Can I get a copy of the transcript whenever you get it done?
Yeah.
We'll have it in the information packet for the memorial. We discussed it.
Okay. So did you leave right at the beginning of that discussion? Okay, I'll put a note
Malcolm
in.
thankfully reminded me that the state recommended that I not be present for that discussion. So
Okay, that's fine.
This discussion? You got any transcripts of this discussion?
well, I asked him to send it to me in case it's useful.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes it's good to add quotes in my narrative, and if there is a particular statement that you or anybody else made that might be helpful for the narrative.
Well, Mike said that we could probably get some kind of statement from RDC.
Okay.